Hello. This is the picoTracker Advance, and today I'm going to show you how to create music with it. For those who haven't heard of trackers, they are music production applications, the precursors to DAWs that started life on 16-bit home computers, going all the way back to the very first tracker, Ultimate Sound Tracker, on the legendary Amiga. A while ago, I came across the video How to Make Music with a Sequencer by Advanced Research, which I really loved. I highly recommend watching it, and the link is down in the description below. Watching the video, I noticed how in many ways sequencing on the Circlone was very similar to the picoTracker, so I wanted to make a video myself showing how to make a track on the picoTracker using a similar workflow. The picoTracker is a very feature-rich device. The manual is well over 100 pages. While the picoTracker Advance can be used just by itself, as it's a very capable sampler as well as a powerful sequencer. For this video, I wanted to show you the MIDI sequencing workflow. So we'll need some extra sound sources to begin with. First off, for the synth, we'll use the Synth's DA-FM Arcade, an FM synth using the YM2151 chip from Yamaha, used in such famous 80s games as Street Fighter II, Space Harrier, Ghouls and Ghosts, Marble Madness, and so many more. Mine is the DIY version for that extra retro feel. While it's amazing value for money, as a 16-part multi-timbral synth, which means that just like the way more expensive Axis Virus, it can play 16 parts at once. The DA-FM doesn't have much in the way of onboard effects, so we'll zhuzh it up a bit by running it through the little Pocket Master multi-effects pedal for that extra little bit of sparkle. For the bassline, I'll be using the TD3, a cheap German clone of the famous TB303. It's nothing special and has a few annoying limitations, but it'll get the job done for us. For the drums, I'll just use the Advance to play a 909 sample pack I found somewhere online. And also, unlike the Circlone video, we can use the Advance to also play any extra little vocals we might want to use on our tracks. So with that, let's get started. The Advance will boot up into the last project you're working on. But here, I'm going to create a new project so you can see the whole process from the very beginning. Once we have created a new project, we can use the random naming feature to give our project a new name. But since I have a keyboard available here, I'm going to take the opportunity to give it my own name. And since we want the tempo to be a bit lower than the default, let's go ahead and set that now. Next, I'll go in and create a new chain, a new phrase, and a new instrument for our 303 bass. I have the TD3 set to receive on MIDI channel 12. So I'll set it here now, and we should be able to hear it playing once I do that. Great. Now that we've got that working, I can go through and fill in the notes for our initial bass line. It's actually not so important exactly which notes we end up using here, as we'll see later that won't be quite that important. And because it took me a little while to go through and pick out the notes before I decided on the particular combination, which as I said wasn't really that important, I fast forwarded this a bit so that you don't have to watch the entire process. Okay, great. So now we've got our bass line happening. But something doesn't sound quite right, does it? Close, but it's not quite right. That's because we don't have the right length of our notes. We can fix that easily by going into the MIDI instrument settings and setting the note length to 3, i.e. half a step or a 30-second note. Much better now. Great. Now that we've got our plucky bass line happening, I should come back to why I said it didn't really matter which notes I ended up picking, because what I had in mind was actually randomly generating the bass line by hopping between different steps in the phrase, between different notes. We can do this on the advance by setting a hop command along with a random command on the same step. What that will do is apply a randomization to which step the hop command actually jumps to. Now, if I do this on every step of the phrase, we'll essentially just get a random bass line happening for us. Now, one thing I wanted to demonstrate here was that what you can do with the keyboard is, and also with the built-in keypad, is select a section of the phrase, copy it, and then paste it in, so you don't have to be typing in the whole thing. I, in fact, could have just selected the first line and copied and pasted it over and over, but here I selected a whole bunch of rows and copied and pasted them. Likewise, with the random command, I could have just set the random value at the start and then copy and pasted it all the way through. But as you can see here, I was concentrating on other things as I did this, so it took me a bit longer than it really should have. So again, I sped this up a little bit to save you the time of watching me faff around like this a bit. But after that, what we have now is, voila, a random bass line just constantly evolving and changing all the time. Now let's set some different velocities for the notes. But we've run into a problem. No more command lanes for our effects on the phrase. Not to worry though, because the picoTracker has tables, and tables can be set per instrument, as well as per step in phrases, including being set as an automation table on an instrument. Now, making a table an automation table means that instead of the table running at normal high speed, it will instead execute each table step once for every step that the instrument plays a note on. So here you can see me adding a step in the table to set a velocity, but instead of having to fill out the whole table with different velocities happening in different steps, and then they would just be in the same sequence all at once, what I'm going to do is again use the random command to set a random velocity each time this step fires. Of course, we only have one step, so what we do again is use the hop command, but this time just to hop back after the first step back to the first step, so that it executes each time for every step as it happens. Every step of the phrase, that is. So every step of the phrase triggers this step in the table, and voila. Okay, and now with our initial bass line done, let's move on to the drums. So we'll just need to do the same thing here and use some of our 909 samples. We need to make a new instrument. So we'll create a new sample instrument. It's set to the bass drum we imported earlier. And so let's put down your standard 4 on the floor bass drum beat. Now once I've entered the bass drum beat, what I can do is head on over to the chain and duplicate that one for another phrase, to make another phrase where I can go in and add in the hats. So now we have a duplicated phrase, but with the hats added. Yep, just make sure it's a hat. Yep, that's the sample we want. And let's just add them in between the bass drum. Nice. Okay, and with the two initial drum patterns done, I'll just go in and set this chain back to be 4 bars of the first kick only phrase. There we go, and back to the song, and we'll create a new chain. And here I'll fill in 4 bars of that second pattern of kick and hats together. Just make sure I get the right phrase, and I'll fill in 4 bars of that. Okay, great, that's done. Now back on the song screen, I'm going to create one more chain to hold the phrases that are going to be for the ride. So we'll come back to the new phrase I just made, create a new instrument for the ride, the sample we previously imported with all the others. So let me just create the new instrument, set its sample to that ride from the 909 pack. Nice. And now let me fill in another 4 notes for the ride to make our phrase, and then I'll go back to the chain and fill out 4 bars of that as well. Okay, now we've got some drum patterns done. Let's go back and do another bassline pattern. So I'll pop back into the column that I'm using for the bassline, create a new chain in there, create a new phrase, and I'll start putting in some bassline notes again. Now for this second bassline, just going to keep things very simple and create a 3-note bassline. So one note, an octave up, then an octave or 2 octaves compared to that one down. This creates a rolling bass line. Very simple. But what we need is to make the phrase shorter, just those 3 notes. So we use the hop command to hop back to the first note at the end of the 3rd note. But hang on a second, something doesn't sound quite right. Yes, what I've done is use the same instrument as for the first bass line. But if you remember, we used an automation table on that first instrument to create random velocities, which is not what we want here. So what we need to do is actually go in and create a new instrument. It's the same MIDI channel and everything, but this time remove the automation table from it. Okay, good, but it still doesn't sound right. Oh, of course, I need to go and change it so that all 3 notes are using this new instrument, not just that last one. Let me fix that up. Now we've got it. Okay, let's stop that there. Now, the next thing to do is go to the song screen, and on the next channel along, we'll start sequencing our synth. So first thing we do is make a new chain again, go in there and create a new phrase. And in our new phrase, we'll create a new instrument to sequence the DA-FM synth. Now, it's listening on all the channels, so we'll just start with MIDI channel 1. We want to use just the preset banks for the DA-FM synth, so we can just send it a CC command of 00 on CC0 to make sure that the preset banks are set and loaded. Ooh, that's a bit loud. Let me just see if I can get the levels fixed up a little bit first. Okay, that's a bit better. And I'll just make some small adjustments on the mixer too. Okay, now that we've got the levels sorted out, let's start auditioning some of our synth patches and see if we can find one that works for us for our first synth part. Nice thing here is you can just use the patch or the program change field on the instrument screen to go through the different patches on the DA/FM synth directly from the instrument screen. Yeah, okay. This one sounds good. Let's go with this one. Now, as I mentioned before, we want to use the Pocket Master's effects to zhuzh up the sound a little bit. So let's pick a Pocket Master preset that I've got set up earlier. Maybe not that one. Yes, let's do this one. Oops, this reminds me. We never set up the delay on the mixer for the TD3. So let's go back and get that fixed up as well. Now I actually have my serial MIDI that's coming out of the Advance getting split, and one of the splits is going to this L6 mixer, so it's getting the clock sync from the Advance to use for its delay effect as well, as you can hear here. Sounds nice. Okay, let's see how all this sounds together. Let's jump back to the song screen and we'll have a listen to it all playing together. The levels are going to need a bit of work, but this video is already getting a little bit long, so I think maybe I'll stop it here and we'll continue on with our synth sequencing and putting everything together for the complete track in the second part of this video. So please join me here next time. Please do the like and subscribe thing if you'd like to be notified when the next video comes out. And till then, I'll see you next time.